Steve Scalise, just don't want to miss this. Hang on here. Let's drop in the Republican from Louisiana.
To run a one-sided Soviet-style process that we've never seen before. This isn't like Benghazi. This isn't like anything else. This is an impeachment inquiry. And in fact, Speaker Pelosi's resolution confirms that it's an impeachment inquiry, yet every other impeachment inquiry we've had in the history of our country, all three, have allowed both sides to call witnesses, have allowed the White House to participate. That's not happening right now. And in fact, not only is it happening, but I think it's important for Jim Jordan to note what just started happening today in this committee, where they're trying to impeach a president behind closed doors without any due process.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you for your leadership. I think most of you know that Chairman Schiff has prevented the witness from answering certain questions we have during the deposition. You know, one of the things you do in these depositions is you ask the basics. Who, what, when, where, why. You ask those questions. When we asked the whistleblower who he spoke to after important events in July, Adam Schiff says, no, we're not going to let him answer that question. Even though at the start of every one of these depositions, and you all know this already, at the start of every single one, he says this is not classified. He tells us that. The witness has their counsel there, their lawyer there. They don't need Adam Schiff being chairman and lawyer. But that's in effect what happened today, and he would not let the witness. And look, the Democrats run out here and say, oh, the Republicans are trying to figure out who the whistleblower is. We're trying to figure out who a witness list is. The resolution that the Speaker has just filed, at some point she points this out in the resolution, this is going to go to the Judiciary Committee, if in fact they push it there. There will be witnesses called. We'd like to figure out who those witnesses should be so the American people can get the facts, get the truth, and we know who these individuals are. So that it seems interesting to me that Chairman Schiff is so sensitive. I mean, pointed out last week, there are 435 members of Congress. One of them, only one of them, knows who the whistleblower is. More importantly, who the sources are for the whistleblower that were the basis of him filing this complaint. And somehow he doesn't want anyone else to know that. Mr. Schiff and his staff are the only ones in America who can know. And there's evidence about his sensitivity. You saw it on display today when we tried to ask the witness certain questions and Mr. Schiff would not let him answer.
Among those questions, are you asking for names that the witness has been in contact with?
That's usually what you do when you want to know who he spoke to.
Okay, does he answer you?
He wouldn't. The chairman wouldn't let him.
But the Democrats are contending that that's a process of elimination to try to figure out who the whistleblower is.
No, it's a process of figuring out who we are going to call as witnesses. We did a letter last week. You all saw the letter. It came from Ranking Member Nunes, Ranking Member McCall, and myself, where we said, go read the complaint. Bullet point number 1 on page 1 of the complaint. What does the so-called whistleblower says? What does he say? Over the past 4 months, more than half a dozen U.S. officials formed the basis of this effort and this complaint that he's filing. I want to know who those more than half a dozen officials are. We want to call them as witnesses, determine their. It's tough to determine someone's credibility if you don't know who they are and you can't put them under oath and ask them questions. Everyone should know that.
What about Mr. Vindman's concerns that he raised in his opening statement that the ask to investigate the Bidens would potentially undermine national security? What's your reaction to that?
My reaction is always to say what I said this morning. There are 4 fundamental facts that have never changed. Never changed. Mr. Vindman is not the first one we've talked to who's been on the call. We've heard from President Trump and President Zelensky. We got the transcript. Both President Trump and President Zelensky said no conditions, no pressure, no pushing, no quid pro quo. We've got the transcript that shows that. We know the Ukrainians did not know at the time of the call that aid had been withheld. And tell me what action President Zelensky or the Ukrainians took to get the aid turned back on. Did he do a press conference? Did he issue a statement? Did he say he was going to investigate and do certain things? None of that happened. Those 4 facts have never changed. Even though you got all this stuff that Adam Schiff wants to talk about and leak from these depositions, these are all just, that's all it is. None of the basic things have ever changed.
The meeting never happened. The meeting that the Ukrainians wanted did not happen. And he raised concerns, Vindman raised concerns that did not happen amid this push for an investigation into the Bidens. That was a concern he raised with the National Security Council lawyer.
President Zelensky and President Trump met at the United Nations.
But he said the meeting that they were trying to get this meeting. It didn't happen.
President Trump and President Zelensky met at the United Nations. Yeah, I don't.
And the money was released.
Yeah.
Well, one point I think that needs to be made on top of what Jim said just happened today. Adam Schiff, among many things, has been trying to claim that this is a fair process by saying that Republicans are allowed to ask questions. Now, he gets to choose all the witnesses, and him and himself only, which means it's not a fair process on the face. But even his claim now that Republicans can ask questions has been undermined, because now he's directing witnesses not to answer questions that he doesn't want the witness to answer if they're asked by Republicans. He's not cut off one Democrat. He's not interrupted one Democrat and told a witness not to answer Democrat members' questions. But today he started telling witnesses, the witness, not to answer questions by certain Republicans. That reeks, and by the way, if you want to talk about a Soviet-style process, again, that might be what they do in the Soviet Union, not in the United States of America. We can't stand for this. The American people are being denied equal justice.
And remember, Adam Schiff walked out here yesterday after Dr. Kupperman has filed a petition with the court to get an answer, walked out here and says he needed to stand up for the rights of Congress to get answers. Our witness today is under subpoena. He's supposed to answer the questions from members of the United States Congress, not just members from the majority of the United States Congress. When it's a subpoena from Congress, we all get to ask the questions, and Adam Schiff doesn't get to say, oh, you can answer our questions, witness, but you can't answer the Republicans' questions. If he's so concerned about the rights of the Congress, the rights of the legislative branch, let us get our questions asked and answered, but he won't do that today. Thank you all.
Other than questions designed to figure out who the whistleblower is, were there other questions that Mr. Schiff blocked you from asking?
I disagree with the premise of your question. We're trying to figure out who we want to call as potential. Just a few weeks ago, you guys, just a couple of days, you guys asked us who we would call. We gave you a list. We have other names too that we give you.
A more expansive idea of which questions you asked.
I can't get into the specific questions we asked. What I will tell you is, after certain events that took place in July, we asked the witness, "Whom did you speak with?" And Adam Schiff says, "Can't do that." Thank you all.
It's clear Pelosi needs to declare a mistrial. This has been a tainted process from the start. What happened today confirms, even worse, just how poorly Adam Schiff is handling this process and denying the ability for Republicans to even ask basic questions that are critical to the heart of whether or not a president of the United States is impeached. This is, by the way, something that Hamilton himself warned against when he was writing in the Federalist Papers, expressing concerns about how Congress would handle impeachment. This is exactly what he talked about. This stinks to high heaven. This shouldn't be allowed, not in the United States of America.
Keep going.